At this time, I'd like to introduce everyone to our speaker today, Judy Olds, who is with Youth Connections. So Judy, give me a second to, there you go. You can now share your screen and I'm going to spotlight your video.
Okay, great, very good. Thank you. I'm not sure how to do all this fancy stuff, Ryan, so just bear with me, people. First of all, I would like to talk to you a little bit about Youth Connections. Pardon me, we're a 44-year-old nonprofit agency. We serve Johnson, Morgan, and Brown County. We're part of a collaborative group of youth service bureaus. And one of the programs that we provide to the community is the Safe Place program. How many of you have seen this sign anywhere? Okay, now, pardon me, do you know what it means?
It means if someone needs help, they can go there and they'll get it and they'll be safe from, if somebody's pursuing them, even, they'll be safe.
Well, that's partially right, partially right. It is a safe place sign, and we have 177 safe place sites in our 3 counties that we serve. Safe Place was started in 1983 in Louisville, Kentucky at a YMCA shelter. And it has grown over the years to 38 states now, our Safe Place states. I'd like to see all of our states become Safe Place states. We have 22,161 Safe Place sites across the nation. And let me just kind of tell you a little bit about how it works. Youth will go to the Safe Place site and say that they need assistance or they need help or whatever their issue is. And then the Safe Place site, the folks there will call us, and then we go and pick up the child and ascertain what the issue is. And hopefully we try to get them back with the parents or the guardians. We also pass out these, I don't know if you can see these or not, but we pass these out to schools or to the schools that we do presentations in. And we also have a small Get Help Now card that we pass out to the kids. We just did the Franklin Halloween event and also Greenwood over the weekend. And I passed out 900 and some cards to the kids. So the other way that the youth can reach us is through their text for help, or they can call us. We have a 24-hour hotline, and I manage that phone. So we get phone calls in the middle of the night. We get phone calls through the day. And I want to just kind of tell you a little bit about some of the calls that we get. We had a phone call recently, well, about a year ago now, from a young girl who called and said she was going to take her life, which is not a situation that you want to hear. So I asked her what her issue was and why she felt that way, that she needed to end her life. And she explained to me that her father had passed away a year ago, and his brother, her uncle, had kind of taken over his spot, and she'd gotten very close to her uncle, and he had dropped dead of a heart attack in front of her. So she just felt as though there was no reason for her to go on. There was no reason for her to get close to anyone because they were all going to die. And she just couldn't see that she wanted to continue to live. As we talked, and when a youth calls like that, we talk to them for as long as they want to talk. But as we talked a little bit further, I found out that she was being bullied a little bit at school because her classmates didn't understand why this was upsetting her so much. She said she had gone to the minister, and her minister didn't understand why she wasn't getting over this, because he felt that when somebody dies, they go to heaven, and that should be a joyous thing. And I explained to her that many times ministers or people that are of the cloth don't really understand grieving. And that's exactly what she was going through. She was grieving. And so we talked a lot about the grief process. And I probably was on the phone with her for about an hour and a half. And she gave her some ideas on things that she should do She promised that she would not go any further with her plan and that she would call me the next day, which she did. And she said she felt better and wanted to know if we could continue to stay in touch. I said, absolutely. So we did stay in touch for quite some time. We also had a young boy that called who said he had run away from home. He did not want to be with his family anymore. There was some abuse there, he said, and he wanted to know where he could go. He was not in our area of Johnson, Morgan, or Brown County, but he was within the Safe Place network. So we were able, through the text for help, we were able to find a Safe Place location where he was and referred him that way. So he was able to get assistance that way. So even though we are not in all the states, the 38 states are tied together through our network. And that makes a really good situation. The other issue that I want to point out is that if a child you go to Disney when we're in normal situation, let's say your child gets lost at Disney and they don't know where to go and they're not being helped, they can text the Safe Place phone and they will get an immediate response at where the closest Safe Place location is. So the program is phenomenal. When I do school presentations, I'm finding more and more kids know about the program and they can understand it and explain it almost as well as I can. So that's our Safe Place program. Some of the other programs that Youth Connections handles is we do children's visitation, supervised visitation. We have a program called Families in Transition. If you get divorced in Johnson County and you have minor children, you're required to, all of you take this class to understand how to co-parent better and how to get the children to adapt better to the divorce situation. We also have a host home program, and it kind of ties in with our Safe Place program. So if we have a youth that we cannot resolve their situation immediately, we would ask the youth go to a host home. And the host home program is usually from 1 to 21 days. We don't keep them any longer in that program than 21 days. And we try to match up the youth with the family. In other words, we wouldn't put a 14-year-old boy in with a 13-year-old girl, a family that had a 13-year-old girl. We wouldn't put a young person that we knew had a history of substance abuse in a family. We would look for another situation for them. And we match the families as carefully as we match the child. One of the things I wanted to point out about our Safe Place sites, and these are libraries, hospitals, fire stations, all of those kinds of things, is that you cannot be a Safe Place site if you are a private home. That's not allowed. Or if you employ anyone that's on the sex registry. We can't allow that to happen either. So those are two of the criteria, and everybody has to be trained on that. So we also do youth mentoring and we do family mentoring, and we do human traffic awareness, which is another way to lead into human trafficking. So how many of you know about human trafficking or really understand what it's all about? I know Kim and Kristen really do because they've heard me say this program before. But for those of you who don't know human trafficking, it's force, beatings, rape or confinement, fraud, false offers of employment, marriage or better life, or coercion, threats, debt bondage, psychological abuse. The traffickers will groom a young person for weeks and months to get them in their confidence. If you think that someone in your neighborhood or your family is being trafficked, some of the things that you can look for are, does your child or your loved one, have they changed their attitude about school or about their appearance recently? Can you detect any psychological or physical abuse with them? Do they have a lack of identification? Have they started running away? Do they have excess amounts of cash with them? Do they have a tattoo that you haven't noticed before? Because a lot of the traffickers will tattoo their girls because that's their brand. And I'm actually seeing a young girl that was branded with a barcode, just like on a can of green beans. And it's really pretty sad. Um, have you noticed a controlling boyfriend around? That's usually something that's a red flag. The one thing that I do want to point out, however, is that people think that human trafficking is kids or women that come from other countries. And while that does happen sometimes, human trafficking takes place right here in our community. And believe me, you can't even imagine how many kids are trafficked that you might even know. 67% of kids that are trafficked by someone they know, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a minister, a friend, a friend's father or mother. And it starts so easily. If you suspect someone's trafficked or being trafficked, there is a hotline that you can call, and I'll give you that number in a little bit. But we also have a big problem with labor trafficking in the state of Indiana, especially when it's time for harvesting of the crops. A lot of folks will hire folks that are maybe not legal in the state or in the country. And where are they going to go if they're abused? Maybe they'll make them work in the fields for hours and hours and hours, and they won't feed them, they won't give them any breaks. But if they're not legal within the country, who are they going to go to? Or maybe they have come over here and they are legal within the country, but they don't feel as though they can go to anyone to report this. This is typically a male situation, and men have a tendency to not want to admit that they are vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. So with human trafficking, boys are also trafficked sexually. Um, it's a growing epidemic. Last year it was a $32 billion industry. That's more money than what McDonald's makes. If you're under the age of 18, you cannot be considered a prostitute, because under the age of 18, you don't have the rationale or the knowledge to say no. So if someone is under the age of 18 and they've been sexually abused or trafficked, it's a little bit easier for the police to press charges. If they're over 18, it becomes a little bit more difficult. However, they're also trafficked. A lot of times parents will be in a situation where they are financially strapped. And so they think that it's okay to traffic their child for money. Or they're using drugs and they can't afford their drugs, so they will sell their child for drugs. It's very sad, and it's a serious situation. And I know that we're seeing more and more on TV about it. And the one thing that I could ask all of you is to be aware, be observant. If you have a youth in your home, watch what they do on social media, because social media is it's the boon for human traffickers. It's so easy for them to get into a young girl's life. They pretend that they're a 15 or a 16-year-old boy, and they will start chatting with them. And many times these kids come from a situation where there's not a lot of parental attention, and they want to fit in somehow. And so they get involved with their trafficker, and then eventually they'll meet. And then, well, you know what happens after that. Many times it's not a good situation. So I want you to write down this telephone number. If you don't do anything else today, the National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. And if you call that number, you need to tell them that you suspect someone of being trafficked, human trafficked, because they really won't pay any attention otherwise. trust your instincts. If something doesn't seem quite right to you, it probably isn't. We talk about labor trafficking a lot too lately, and I'm sure that all of us know the kids in our neighborhood. We know the schools in our neighborhood. We know the fundraisers that they have in our neighborhood. So if you see a kid come to your neighborhood that you know just doesn't fit, or says that they're selling candy to win a trip to Orlando, to Disney, ask them some questions because this child may be labor trafficked. They may have been told that if they get involved with this, that they'll give their parents money. And so you need to ask them questions, ask them what school they're involved with. And many times they won't even understand that there's a school in the area. So these are things that you can look for. And honestly, before I started getting trained in this, I had kids come to my door that I knew didn't belong in the neighborhood, and I just shoot them away. And there's a good possibility that they were being labor trafficked. So human trafficking, labor trafficking, safe place, all tie in together. The host home program ties in together with that. And we really are in a nation where we have children that are homeless, that are in unstable environments. And, you know, the old saying that it takes a village, and it truly does take a village. So I employ each of you to watch out for the kids. These are the adults of tomorrow. And one of the things I will say is that kids have a totally different attitude on life than what we used to have or what I had when I was growing up. We did a presentation at one of the high schools a few years ago, and we tell the kids when we do safe place presentations that what is talked about in the room stays in the room, kind of like Vegas. And so we were talking about bullying and how to have healthy relationships. And this one girl who was 17 years old said, you know, I don't mind having sex when I'm drunk. I just don't like it when I'm sober. I mean, there's so many things wrong with that statement that it's just mind boggling. And we can't go to the parent because we've promised that we won't go to a parent. So we have to really educate the kids that, you know, underage drinking is not smart. It's not a good decision. And we have to work with them on healthy relationships. So that's really all I have for today. I'd be open to take any questions. Ryan, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Awesome. It looks like Kim has a question.
Yeah.
I do. Going back to the first of your presentation about the safe house.
Safe place, host homes?
Safe place sign.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just curious. Well, first of all, you said over 22,000 across the nation, but how many are in Johnson and Morgan County?
Oh my, I knew you were going to ask me that.
No big deal. I just was curious. That's not a big deal, but the
How
real
many
question,
safe place sites?
yeah,
We have 177 in Johnson, Morgan, and in Brown County.
177. And the next part of that question is, do you know statistics like how many kids have seen that sign and went in for help in those 3 counties?
Yes, every year we go out and we inspect the sites. Excuse me, I'm actually in the process of doing that now. I was in Brown County last week inspecting the sites. And sometimes they'll say, yes, we've had a child come or a youth come. And we track that with our metrics. So we know we have to report it every month to Indiana Youth Services Association. And I will say it's been amazing that during the pandemic, I anticipated a huge spike in safe place calls, and it has not happened. Domestic violence has gone up, but I don't know whether kids just are not going out, which I'm assuming that they aren't, but they're not going to safe place sites.
Thank you.
Did that answer?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Curious. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Judy, I have a question for you. Excuse me. You mentioned the text for a location of safe place. Has that actually increased overall traffic into safe place sites since it's been introduced?
Well, again, I can only go by the 3 counties that we serve as far as our metrics. It has. It's a lot of kids would prefer to text rather than talk to someone in person. And so we have gotten a lot of texts. I have not, since I've taken over the program again during the pandemic, it's decreased. But we have the cards, the little cards that I showed you. We have them in English and Spanish. It's on the other side. So we try to get it to the kids regardless. Again, the Safe Place phone, it's 24-hour hotline, and we're available 24/7, both for texting and for live discussion. And it has a very unique ring to it. It sounds like a clown car. So when that phone goes off, believe me, I know it's it's a safe place. I've also been finding out that I'm getting a lot of telemarketing calls, robocalls on the Safe Place hotline. So I don't know how they're getting that number, but they come in on a different format. I will say that. So.
Awesome.
Judy, thank you for all the work you do. That's it's kind of depressing.
It can be.
Sad.
Yeah,
And
it can be.
I appreciate you always being bubbly and up when I see you after a day long of dealing with that. So just thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. I have a passion for kids. You know, I've worked with kids with disabilities for many years, and I must say that this is the most difficult job I've ever had. And I've sat by bedsides when kids are dying. So that tells you something. I think there's a lot of parents out there that are not as engaged as they should be. And unfortunately, we see that a lot here at Youth Connections. So hope for the best. I don't want to leave you guys on a down note. So I will tell you something that happened to me not long ago. We like to get into the hotels and do training. And I had done a training at the Brown County Inn. I had trained their housekeepers and their maintenance men and their front desk people. And so I went down there a few months after that training, and there was a young man sitting on the front porch at the Brown County Inn having a cigarette. And I pulled up, and I have a kind of a distinctive car, and I got out of my car, and he said, "Oh, I know you. You're the sex lady." And I said, no, I'm not the sex lady. I said, "I talked with you about human trafficking." And he says, "Oh yeah, that's right. I knew it had something to do with sex." So yeah, I have a reputation in Brown County. So we do like to get into the hotels and educate those folks about human trafficking too, and what to look for. If you ever find your child with a bunch of hotel keys, ask them why. Kids shouldn't have hotel keys. So that's it, Ryan. I'm done.
Awesome. Well, everyone, let's give Judy a round of applause for her presentation today.
Thank you.